This man to my left, I think, is one of the most inspiring people on planet Earth today.
Thank you.
And an unbelievable public speaker, for the record, that you're going to hear about in a minute. But this is Nick Santonastasso. And as you can tell, Nick and I have been friends now for a while. But Nick has a story to tell, as you can tell, is probably different than anyone you've ever heard before. And so I'm excited to have you here today, brother.
Grateful for the opportunity, brother.
You know how much I've wanted you here, and we've been connecting through social media for a while, and I consider you a friend.
I appreciate that.
And I'm so excited that I'm going to help even get you further exposure to the world.
I'm excited. I'm excited.
I am too, brother. And so they need to know more about you. So let's get right into your story, man.
All right.
Let's get into it, because I know there are people watching this. You know, it's interesting, man. People are listening to this podcast or watching it on YouTube, and they find us in different conditions in their life. Some of them are rocking right now. They want an edge to go to the next level. Some people are sort of trying to find their why. And then there's people that are watching this today that are not where they want to be. They feel like they're falling behind. They're hurting. You know, they're just hurting. Yes. Emotionally, physically, financially, spiritually, they're hurting. And I think it's the third group, although I think you reach the first two. I think it's the third group that you reach in a way that nobody I know can reach. And so I'm hoping to reach those of you today that are in that category in a very deep way. Those of you that are in the other two, I think you're going to take it a notch higher after you hear this. But let's talk about you for a second and not them.
Okay, let's do it.
So you were born with something called Hanhart syndrome,
yes.
Right? And take them through sort of what that is, and then sort of what it can really mean for the other people that were diagnosed with it. 1996, you were born.
Yes.
And so there were 12 people born with it at that time, right?
I was the 12th.
You were the 12th, and so talk about that.
Yeah, so I was the baby of the family. I was the last kid my mom was pregnant with. And, you know, the pregnancy was going fine until my mom, they went in for an ultrasound. And basically they sat my parents down and pulled up, you know, the baby on the screen. And the doctors are like looking at each other and saying, there's something wrong. My parents are like, what do you mean there's something wrong? And it says, well, from the looks of it, it doesn't look like some of his limbs are being developed. It looks like he's missing his legs and his one arm. And, you know, after that, they finally diagnosed me with Hanhart syndrome.
In womb? Was that in the womb they diagnosed it or after? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they said I had a bunch, they said like my face was messed up, cleft lip. They said a bunch of things to my parents before the birth.
Well, that wasn't true, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so my parents looked at each other and said, we're going to see where life takes this. You know, we're going to just have this kid born and see what he's capable of doing.
Thank God, because some people might have reacted differently
Absolutely.
to that news. Thank
Absolutely.
God, right? Okay.
Yeah, so I was born, but before that they said he's going to be the 12th baby born, and out of the 12, 8 of them have passed away due to undeveloped organs.
Oh boy.
So what that means is, you know, the baby's born and it can't breathe on its own, or it can't eat on its own, and later passes away. So they gave me a 30% chance, and when I was born, you know, the first thing they did was do tests of my organs. And I remember my mom saying the first thing she remembers is I had a full head of hair and a big smile, and she's like, oh my God, this baby's gorgeous. And yeah, I can remember that. And they did tests of my organs, and it came back 100% healthy, that the only thing were affected were my limbs. All my organs were 100% healthy.
Thank God.
And so, you know, that's one of the reasons why living in a state of gratitude, you know, is so important. And I shouldn't be here. So like every day, you know, every day we live, every day we're alive is an amazing day.
God bless your mom, though. So of the 12 that were born, 8 didn't make it?
8 have passed.
Yeah, and bless your mom. You imagine the anxiety of even going into labor that day. You mothers out there, imagine how difficult labor was for you, but also on top of that, knowing that there was this gigantic percentage chance that the baby wasn't going to make it anyway. Your parents are amazing, man.
Yeah, I always thank them for that. They made me who I am, you know, my mindset.
Yeah, you're amazing, by the way.
I appreciate that.
You are. So I'm fascinated by this. When did you figure out you were different than other people? Was there an age that you remember going, hey, I'm different, or did you like never think you were?
Well, from the earliest of ages, my parents basically sat me down from when I can remember and said, Nick, the world's not going to stop for you because you're born like this. You know, the world's not going to stop, and you're basically going to have to figure out how to do each and everything your way. You know, Nick, getting on a chair is going to be a little bit harder, feeding yourself. So basically, in the most polite and nice way, my parents would put food in front of me and say, Nick, figure it out.
Seriously?
Or put my clothes in front of me and say, Nick, just figure it out, like, try your way. And that's all they wanted me to do was, you know, try my best to figure it out. And what that did was it got my mindset in the earliest of ages, got my mindset of the rhythm of, okay, it's not can't, but it's how, you know? And that's like taking different approaches, and that's for everyone, you know. We're gonna have challenges in our life, and they might scare us, they might freak us out, we might be like, oh my God, but if you sit back and be like, okay, how? You know, how am I gonna do this? How am I gonna approach this? So, you know, basically throwing reality at me at an early age, because mom and dad are not going to be around all the time. You're going to have to figure out how to dress yourself and feed yourself. Because when I was born, the doctors basically handed over a list to my parents and were like, here's all the things your son won't be able to do. Your son won't be able to feed himself. Your son won't be able to dress himself, walk. Your son will basically be a big baby for the rest of their life. And that's what I tell people. I said, we have that same choice that my parents had in a different situation. And that is, we can either let other people dictate what we're capable of doing, or go out and see what you're capable of doing.
Oh my gosh.
And that's the choice. That's the choice we all have.
Yeah, you also give a lesson. Your parents give a lesson. This is going to be unreal, everyone, just so you know, get ready. You also give a lesson, though, in building a child or building a team. It's like you can't do everything for them, right? They've got to, you need to be willing to let people figure things out for themselves, so they build that resiliency, I think, in life. I think as a parent, too often we're trying to do everything for them, or even as a leader in business, we try to provide every perfect thing for them. Let people figure things out for themselves and build that sort of resiliency amongst themselves. How old were you, by the way, when you could do those things? Like, I'm curious, were you a certain age, you're like, I can dress myself? I mean, things like that that most people take for granted.
I think it was probably like, I don't know if it was like 3 or 4, but they threw me into a bunch of things. And the one thing that I always tie into life is skateboarding. That was the one thing. You
skateboarded?
Yeah. So it was the one thing, my parents or my brother, I'm not sure who put me on first.
Okay.
But I compare skateboarding to life is because I started off like a surfboard. They put me on my stomach, and it was a cool way for me to get around. I loved it. My brother skateboarded. So I realized, okay, laying on my belly, I'm not going fast enough. I want more. So then Nick realized that if he stood up like this and got his balance, and I could really get some speed. And and then I through falling on my face and getting back up and figuring out, what I can do, I wanted more. And one day I said, Mom and Dad, come outside to learn a trick. And they were like, oh God, what is Nick about to do? I'll do it here real quick. And so I went up to the top of the hill. I'm like, Mom and Dad, you ready? And they're like, what is this kid about to do? And I'm coming down so fast. And I go by them like this.
Holy crap.
And phew, Nick's going by in a handstand, and my face is like 2 inches from the pavement. And my mom's like, oh my God. And I'm like, did you see that? And the message that I always tell people with that is, they saw, when I posted that, people saw the handstand, but they didn't see how many times I fell on my face. They didn't see the journey. They didn't see how many times that, I scraped myself up and got back up again. And that's the same thing for everyone. We look up to these people. We look up to artists. We look up to DJs, whatever it may be. We look up to all these people. But what you see currently is where they are at now. You didn't see how many times they got denied, how many times they said they weren't pretty enough, good enough, strong enough, whatever it may be. They didn't see that. Dude. So, documenting the journey is so important, and just seeing the grind.
I gotta be honest with you, that's the first time since we've talked today. I'm not kidding you, by the way. That's the first time since we've talked today that I sort of, this is gonna sound so weird for everybody, but I'm gonna tell you how really the truth.
Yeah.
That was the first time since we've talked today that I was conscious of the fact that you did lack limbs. Do you know that? Like the whole time we've been talking, I haven't really been conscious of that since we've known each other, because I don't know why that is. I mean, I just think it's that your spirit's so infectious. You're just, that was the first time I went, oh yeah, that's right, by the way. Isn't that interesting?
Thank you.
That's really interesting, bro. Like, that, so you knew you were different. I interviewed a guy that's a great friend of mine now, and his mom's been a friend of mine for, gosh, 30 years. Cody McCaslin. Cody's missing, or he's had both legs amputated. And he told me, I just want to know if the lesson's true for you. He knew he was different when he was young, and he said one of the things that's most difficult when you're in a situation like that is people not asking you about it. He says, they just stare at you, right? And he said to me, he goes, you know what, my advice is, if you see someone who's different than you, by the way, I think this is even true culturally.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if you grew up Jewish and there's someone Muslim that you meet, I think they prefer you say, hey, how did you grow up? What's it like, right? So you see someone different than you. And so is that true even as you were growing up? Would it be easier for you if someone just came over and go, hey man, what's the deal? Or was that better?
Yeah, absolutely. And when I got into middle school, I say that was a big slap in the face for me, because before that, honestly, I didn't realize. I was just going through the motions. I have to say, I was blessed with a great school system, a great set of friends, and I never ran into like bullying too much.
Okay.
But when I got into middle school, I realized that since I had an 8 in school, that people thought I was mentally slow just because I had an 8 in school, and that I was getting pushed around, and I realized I was getting different treatment. And I always say middle school and high school, we can all agree that that's the most judgmental time of a kid's life, going into that. And that's when I did realize, the kids were pointing or, whispering. And growing up, like being like this, you always realize in public, people looking at you. Like, it's just a sense you have, because I just feel like you're different, you know, so people are going to look. So definitely it is better for people to just be like, hey, like, what's going on or what happened?
What's up?
And, you know, I get a lot of people come up and say, oh, thank you for your service. I'm like, oh, no, you know, I'm not that type of hero.
They thought it was an IUD or something like that.
And I'm like, because I got the tattoos and everything. And I'm like, no, I'm not that type of hero. I'm not that hero, you know. I was born like this. And it's a lot better when people ask you because would you rather someone staring at you or be like, hey, like, who are you? What are you? You know?
100%. It's just like, but by the way, speaking of tattoos, I think you have a bunch of really unique ones, but I like this one. Tell them what this says right here. Does everybody see this? By the way, I don't know if the camera can get in there on that or not, Nico. But tell them what that says.
So this says, you laugh at me because I'm different, and I laugh at you because you're all the same.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm pretty sure it's a Kurt Cobain quote, but that's what everyone's trying to do, is trying to fit in and trying to, you know, especially, like I said, in middle school and high school, you're sitting with your little groups and your cliques, but like, wouldn't you rather the people that organically flock to you, those are your tribe, that's your group, because those are the people that love you for your authentic you, rather than wearing this mask, you know? So that's not like, hey, like, I'm way different than you, I'm better than you. No, that's like, yo, be yourself, you know, because you are going to organically attract the right things in your life, the right people in your life, because you're being who you are.
Oh, bro. Come on, man. That's good.
Thank you.
That's good. And so I'm curious, you did sort of get into this sort of, you know, you said that was the hardest time of your life was middle school and high school, at least the beginning of high school. Did you kind of go into a little bit of a depression, sort of down on yourself? And then if you did, how'd you get out of it?
Yeah, so middle school, high school, I was at an all-time low for me, you know, and my big question was why? You know, I realized I was different, and I realized, you know, some of the negativity of kids staring at me. I was just like, why? You know, there's billions of people. Why do I have to be on this earth with no legs and one arm? These kids don't know what I'm going through. Why? Like, why? And I was pissed off. You know, the universe, God, whatever it may be, I was just pissed off that I was in this situation. And when I got into high school, I realized, you know, that I was in the slump. And I realized that, you know, confidence is a skill. It's not just something that you wake up with. And that's what I thought. When I thought in middle school and high school, I was like, well, I guess I'm just not born with confidence. You know, I thought you either had it or you didn't, but to show people that's a skill and you gradually work on it. So I needed to work on myself. And I'm lucky that I realized that the only person that's going to make a drastic change in your life, you know, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, like you were talking about, is you. You know, you have to take control of yourself. And I realized, I was like, man, like one choice. You have one choice. I can either look at all the negative I have in my life and focus on that, which won't propel me. It will dig me into a hole. Or I can focus on all the good and all I'm capable of doing, and that will elevate me. So when I was freshman year, it was funny. My best friend, we're still best friends to this day, and all my wrestler best friends are you know, we're still best friends. But he was a bowler. And in my high school, you know, I was like, man, if I could be part of a team, you know, just like a group, something, a support system, I'll feel better about myself. I'll be labeled as, you know, an athlete, if it's a bowler, whatever it may be. You know, I'm an athlete, Nick's an athlete. So that fired me up. So I remember our varsity team was super good, and our JV bowling team was undefeated until I joined the team. and I joined the JV team, and I remember, I totally remember they didn't even have the correct like jersey for me. I had an older jersey, so like it's me, and like people are like, how's this kid gonna bowl? And I was just like throwing a ball down the lane, and I realized that I wanted much more. That it wasn't challenging me enough, and I wanted something more physical. And so I got into my sophomore year, and all my best friends. So that best friend wrestled his younger years in like mat rats when he was younger. And so sophomore year, they all were on the wrestling team. They all were like all stud wrestlers for my high school. My older brother was a wrestler for that same high school, but I never got to go to high school with him. So like the coaches knew me.
They knew your family.
And so I was like, man, I thought wrestlers were the coolest thing, you know, the hardest physical sport, like physically and mentally, I want to be a wrestler. So at the time, this arm was about 5 inches longer than it is now. And my bone was growing faster than my skin. So it was like your finger, but super pointy. So I couldn't really touch it on things. It was super sensitive.
And painful too, right?
Yes, painful. So I used to tuck it because if I would have hit my arm hard enough, my bone would have came through. Jeez. That's how like, but that's how like, you know, light it is. And so I made that decision to myself. I said, if I could become a wrestler, you know, if I could be with my friends and just get after it in the room, you know, it would make me feel so much better about myself and just lift me up. And so I came home one day and I said, Mom and Dad, I want to be a wrestler. And I remember I waited for my dad to be home. And my parents supported me in everything and anything throughout my life. You know, Nick, as long as you're happy, you know, we want you to do it. But this was a little bit different. I said, Mom and Dad, I want to be a wrestler. My mom was like, oh my God, Nick, you know, wrestling's the most physical sport. If you're out there, you hit your arm. And I was like, I was a 17, 18-year-old kid. And I looked at him and I said, can we cut it off?
Oh my gosh, bro.
And they were like, what? And I'm like, can we take care of this? Like, it's not helping. And, you know, it took me a couple hours, but I persuaded my parents to schedule an amputation. So we found, like, the best doctor, and they basically lasered 5 inches of my arm off and did a skin graft. So they pulled extra skin and pulled it over my bones so I'd have, you know, padding. And I always tell people, the only little mountain, the only little challenge that I saw that was stopping me from wrestling was the fact that my arm hurt. It wasn't the fact that I was born with no legs on my arm, because I knew that my hard work and dedication, if I worked harder than the able body, it would make up for my lack of limbs. If I put the work in, you know, work my butt off, that this wouldn't matter. And I remember going back to school and I was so happy. Like I said, happiest kid who just cut his arm off. And people are like, dude, what did you just do?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I amputated my arm. I'm going to be a wrestler. And it was the same cycle. It was people, dude, you can't wrestle. You know, it was, dude, how are you going to be a wrestler? You have no legs and one arm. Like, dude, let's be real. You know, the outside noise, the naysayers, the haters. And I said, you're right. I'm not going to become a wrestler. I'm going to become a varsity wrestler. And you know, I think from the earliest of ages, from, you know, my parents telling me what the doctors told me and all this, I always carried a little bit of chip on my shoulder to show people what I'm truly capable of doing.
I'm thinking about all the things that people use as an excuse to stop. They use as an excuse to hold back, right? And you've never done that before. And it's sort of just crazy to me. And one of the things I found out about you, obviously you're a competitor, right? But you're also real grateful. And I think that would surprise a lot of people, that someone who, you know, got a little bit bullied and teased as a young guy, nothing came out perfect, nothing's easy for you, right? But yet you're really a grateful dude. Talk about how important gratitude is for you, in addition to all of this intense competition you've been through. How important is gratitude?
I feel like gratitude, if a person can just live in a state of gratitude, it could change their whole entire life. And I can make this quick and simple and easy for everyone to comprehend. Me, a man with no legs and one arm. There are millions of people as we sit in this couch that would switch places with me in an instant because they just don't have it like me. There are kids and adults that are confined in wheelchair beds. There are kids and adults that are paralyzed in wheelchairs that look outside and say, man, I wish I could just go outside and breathe the fresh air. I wish I could just listen to the birds. I wish I could get out of this hospital bed. Like, it gives me chills. That's all the motivation I need, because I know that my situation isn't bad. And the sad thing is that there's people with full bodies that say, oh man, his life's bad. No, it's not. You know, the biggest disability is a bad mindset. It's not this. It is not this. It's people don't have their mind right, Ed. It's people are just like, oh my God, I can't do this, I can't do that. No, you're truly capable of anything. You put limits on yourself. The only limits you have are the ones you put on yourself.